this is Sasha, and if you are watching this, you've already seen the title. Unfortunately, on October 3rd, 2015 at 2:30 p.m., my daughter was born, and she was born stillborn. And this is my labor and delivery story. And it's not going to be the most exciting, but it's not the most devastating. But I felt inclined to share because I've been blessed with people who follow my story. And there's nothing to be ashamed about when these things happen. And I started this because of my daughter, and I'm going to continue it because of my daughter. So I'm going to take it back to 3 weeks ago, actually 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago, on a Wednesday, I had my 38.5-week appointment. I was 38 weeks, 5 days. Heartbeat was perfectly fine. Baby was head down. The doctor could feel the top of her head. Still wasn't dilated, but my uterus had thinned out more. So I went through the weekend fine. Monday night, she had hiccups in the evening. Tuesday night, because I was going to bed around midnight, had hiccups. Late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, the following week, I felt my first contraction around between 2 and 2:30. And I thought it was a dream, and I grabbed my husband, and when I was waking up, I was like, you know, babe, did I grab you? And he was like, yeah, you grabbed me real hard. I was like, I think I had a contraction. So by the time I woke up getting ready for work, my contractions were still going. They were about 15 minutes apart, and I knew that the hospital was not going to admit me at that time. So I went ahead and went to work. So the contractions kept getting stronger and stronger, but I'd had the regular doctor's appointment that same day. So I was like, I can just wait to the doctor's appointment that's at 4 o'clock. Around 2 o'clock, the contractions were about 5 to 6 minutes apart. So I called my doctor's office and I said, hey, I think I'm in labor and my contractions are really just coming close together. So I finished up at work. And he was like, you know, just go ahead and go to the doctor. So I'm all excited. I'm finishing up. I've got music playing to help me because the contractions were real intense. I get home. I call my husband at work, and he's like, well, come get me because I don't want you to drive. So I make it to his job because I live a good little distance, but I was still fine. I was playing music, keeping my mind relaxed. That had a good, you know, beat to it so that the contractions weren't taking me out while I was driving. So I was completely comfortable with the situation. So I get my husband. We get home because we had left something. The car seat was already in the car, but my bags and stuff were by the door. We were going to put them in that evening. But we came home, grabbed his bags, and we were all set and ready to go. So I called my doctor around 2. By the time we got to the hospital, it was probably about 10 after 3 because, again, I had seen that a lot of times people rush, and seeing that before I wasn't dilated or anything like that, I didn't want to get to the hospital and they just send me back home. So we get there. We were already pre-registered. It didn't take long to get us in, and they took us back to triage. And at that point, I was just like nervous. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be bringing a baby home today. And it just seemed like everything from this moment literally became a dream. So we were in there, and they were having trouble finding the baby's heartbeat. And then you heard a faint sound, which sounded like her moving, but then it wasn't. So they got the regular triage ultrasound machine, and they was like, we think that's the trace from your heart. That's why it's so faint. We're going to get the tech to come in here, and we're going to get the more advanced ultrasound. So they brought the more advanced ultrasound in machine after the trace didn't work, and they got to the chest cavity, and which I'm able to tell what the chest cavity looks like. You can see the lung, you can see the heart, and you could see that there was no movement. And so still at that time, the doctor was like, well, we're going to check for blood flow. So give us a moment. We're going to take some pictures, look at the scan, and see if there's any blood flow. Because if there is, we can hurry up and deliver the baby, and she'll be fine. And my husband had went into the restroom because I had been gowned and everything. And he came out, and, you know, he had told me when he went in there, he was praying to God, and God just let him know that she was gone. And when he came out, I could just feel it in the room. We had very nice nurses, and we were blessed with them, and they came in, and I was still in a lot of pain, but they wanted me to talk to my doctor just to get more understanding, because they didn't want me to just stay in the hospital, because we didn't know. Even though I was having contractions, that doesn't necessarily mean I was dilated, and they wanted me to be able to process it. So some people feel like that's a bad thing. Some people think it's not. I got the pain medication. We went home, and I think the first night was the hardest night. I felt like, even though I know we have faith as human beings, it was just really hard for me to process everything that was going on. It was a lot. So our family came over to the house, and they were talking with us, and a lot of people started praying, and, you know, we're like, well, you know, God has the final say, so maybe when it's time for her to come out, you know, she'll just be breathing. And I just never allowed myself to hope like that, because false hope was going to make it worse. So I took the pain medication, was able to lay down, but I was still having contractions. I need to make that clear. My contractions never stopped from that 2:30 time early Wednesday until I ended up delivering October 3rd. So they kind of subsided a little. I was able to get some rest, but not a lot. And then we scheduled an appointment. My doctor, my regular OBG, was out Thursday, was actually out of town. So we met with another doctor, and that doctor was very candid about the situation. He had a previous patient that it had happened to do the previous year, last year in 2014. So he was giving us very clear and concise information, which is what I needed to hear to be able to mentally prepare myself to deliver a child that I knew was not alive. And sometimes people don't understand how difficult that is, but you mentally have to be prepared, or you're not going to be able to make it through. And so he gave me some more pain medication, and this was again on a Thursday morning, and he wanted me to be induced Saturday after 5 o'clock, because him and my regular doctor were both going to be on call that weekend. And of course they gave me the birthing unit information if something were to happen and the pain was intolerable and I couldn't wait. But at that moment I had set my mind that I wanted people I felt comfortable with, because it really gets tiring having to repeat the story and everything that is happening, and you're so emotionally drained. And that wasn't just for me, that was also for my husband. We just needed time to process. And so Friday we kind of called the funeral home, because I had a friend that this had happened to several years prior, and she was such a blessing to me. She talked with me over the phone, and because we were in the same city, she was telling me of, you know, things that they do for you for free and all of that. So that really helped ease some things off my mind. Even though panic was slowly setting in, I just tried not to focus on it that much, because I knew that she was still inside of me, and I still had to deliver my daughter and keep my wits about me. So Friday, the contractions are starting to get more intense. Taking the pain medication. I'm trying to go to sleep. I'm in the bed all day. It's just horrible. About 3 o'clock Saturday morning, the day I was scheduled to be induced, I couldn't take it anymore. I hadn't slept. I had lost 6 pounds in those days from Wednesday to that early Saturday morning. So pretty much in 72 hours, give or take, I had lost 6 pounds, and it was fluid and it was water, because I really wasn't eating. I would eat a little bit just so that the medicine wouldn't make me sick, because it had made me sick when I first took it, and I didn't want that to happen. So my husband was like, you know, babe, I don't think that you're going to be able to make it, so let's just go up there. And I didn't want to go, because honestly I was just not mentally prepared. I didn't want it to sink in. I knew as soon as I delivered her that everything that I had been trying to avoid was just going to fall apart. All the dreams, all the hopes, all the calmness was just going to fade. So I couldn't take the pain. We got to triage. They checked me. I was almost 3 centimeters dilated. They got us in the room pretty quickly. Like, I was in the room, in the bed, putting the gown on by 3:30. And so we had a little trouble with the IVs. They were putting the IVs in my arm. And when I got to triage, I don't want to skip anything, I was dehydrated. And my veins were really shrunken due to dehydration. And they stated after they checked my urine that I had developed a urinary tract infection from that Wednesday to that Saturday morning. And my blood pressure was high. So all these things had transpired from me being home. Even though I thought I was managing everything, but my body was clearly not taking the stress and everything well. So when they got in there, they tried the IV. The IV wouldn't go in my arm. Ended up bruising my whole left arm. And I have brachial plexus in my right arm, which is a form of palsy. We ended up having to use that arm in order to get the IV in my system. And then from there, they started putting pain medication in there. And after the first dose of that pain medication, and I felt a little bit more comfortable, I had them go ahead and do the epidural. Now, the thing that should be said about the epidural is the first epidural didn't take. They asked you, can you wiggle your toes and can you still move your legs? My legs were heavy, but I could still wiggle my toes and like scoop my legs over. So the doctor was like, we can continue with, we can put back the pain drip. But the nurse had already told me that that kind of wears off. So after your second dose, it's not as potent as the first and the third and so on and so forth. So I wanted something to make me comfortable so that I could focus on doing what I had to do. And so he took the epidural out, and my husband was such a sweetheart. I never saw the epidural needle. I just felt the pressure. He numbed it. It did feel like a bee sting. My husband just held my hand and just kept talking to me in my ear, and that really helped things out a lot. And I was able to get the second round of epidural. I laid back down. They started checking my blood pressure because they have to every 5 minutes when you're doing the epidural. My blood pressure was still high, but the second epidural took and I started to get completely numb. I could still feel the contraction because it really only numbs the pain, but you'll still be able to feel the contractions coming. They're just not bad. You can, breathe through them. And that's pretty much what happened. My sister and my brother-in-law came in, and my dad and my stepmom ended up coming in, and all that transpired, and I was pretty much fine. I just kept breathing, and they got closer together, and they kept checking me. So later that morning when they checked me, I was about 6 centimeters dilated. But around 1:30 when they checked me again, I was over 9 centimeters dilated. So I knew that they were getting closer. And I kept feeling the urge that I was having a bowel movement, which is really indicative of what a lot of people already say. And so they were like, try to get through it. And then when you feel like you can't do it anymore, let us know. And the great thing is the nurses that were with me were the same ones who had found out with us. So they were the nurses who were in there when we found out that Wednesday that she had no heartbeat. And they saw our names and they asked could they be with us, which was really helpful because, again, the less people we had to explain it to, the better. And we were in the private section of the hospital at the end, so we didn't have to hear like other people who were in there laboring and delivering, which really would have just made it harder for me to get through. And I didn't want my situation, knowing that my child was deceased, to affect someone else who might be giving birth for the first time and their child is living. So I was really pleased with all the things that they did in regards to that. And about 1:45, I knew that we were getting to that point. So I was like, it's getting closer. I don't know. And then the doctor came back in and was like, you know, it's okay to push a little bit if you feel like you can't, and just do that for a little while. So again, it kind of hurt, kind of felt uncomfortable, but then I knew it got real. This was probably around 2:10, 2:15. Time started getting blurry, but it really wasn't that long. I can't even say, it was probably more around 2:20. They had put me in the stirrups and I couldn't hold it anymore, and they could see her head, and it was like, he was like, push. So he was explaining to me how to push, 3 simple steps. Take a deep breath, kind of like do a crunch, and then like push like you're taking a bowel movement. But I was messing it up, and I could feel her starting to come out, and I just flipped out. I could not do it. Like, I knew I could do it, but mentally I was so exhausted, and I just didn't want this to be my reality. And so I just broke down, and I just cried, and I had to pray, because I felt like I just couldn't do it anymore. My body had been in chills, and I'm sorry I'm missing some things out of order. The hour prior to going in labor, from around that 1 to 2, I had horrible chills due to my hormones being so imbalanced during this part of labor. And so I had about 8 blankets, hot towels on me. My husband and my sister and my brother-in-law just kept like changing it out, putting it on my head. I felt like I was going to bite my tongue. It was all kind of stuff. So when we got to this point, I physically was exhausted. I didn't know how I could go another step. And that's literally when my faith had to kick in and listen to the doctor. And he was like, you know, we're at this point. So I gave a half push, and her head was out, and I felt, well, her head wasn't out. It was like coming out. And I looked at my husband, who was on the right side of me, and I was looking at everyone in the room, and I realized I just needed to do it, because if I didn't get through this, I was literally, my temperature was up. I already had an infection. I could have risked losing my own life. So I asked the doctor. He was like, give me 3 pushes. And that was what I was able to give him. And then she came out. And it's a feeling that I can't describe. But I was glad that she was out. But everything I have been holding on to at that moment became so real. Like, there was nothing. I mean, my husband immediately, he had saw her, because they had put her on top of me, and I closed my eyes before I could see her, because I just wasn't ready. So I asked them, could they said, are you ready to see her now? And I was like, no. I was like, I want to get myself together. And I knew I wasn't done. I knew I still needed to deliver the placenta. And when I saw my husband break down, and the nurses, who were so sweet, they cried, and my sister was crying, I knew I wasn't ready for the reality. And some people think that it's being in denial, and it could be, but once you bond it with your child for 40 weeks and a day, you're just not ready to let everything that you have prayed over and worked for just stop. And so I was like, Doc, what do I need to do to get the placenta out? He was like, just give me 1 more push. I gave like a half a push, and it came out. And they checked me, and I was blessed to have no tearing. There was nothing in there. It was pretty simple. They took my legs out of the stirrups and cleaned me up. And then I asked, could I see her? And they were going to bathe her. And they had said that I could help them bathe, but I just wanted them to bring her to me. And she was so beautiful and so quiet and so still. It just broke my heart. It was like heartbreaking. Like, you're thankful that God blesses you with the opportunity to be a mom and carry a child, But it's also heartbreaking because at that moment it sinks in that you're not going to take her home, and you're not going to know, her cry. She's never going to physically saw your face. And I knew it was hard for my husband as well as everybody in the room. And so we had made a pact that we were going to enjoy every moment that we had with her. And I apologize to keep saying her. Her name is Shala. And Shala is a cross between my mom's name and my name. I'm Sasha and my mom's name was Sheila. And so my husband came up with the Shala to keep the S going, because my sister's name also starts with the S. And then her middle name is Sonora, which is my mom's middle name, and Pearl after my grandmother. So we took a lot of time with her name, and we've known her name since we knew we were pregnant. We had a boy name and a girl name. And after we delivered and they bathed her and wrapped her in the towel, we got to hold her and keep her in the room because she was delivered at 2:30, and she didn't leave us until midnight, and family got to see her and hold her, and we took as many pictures as we could. And I was able to get up and walk and put my own clothes on after 2 hours, and I sat and I held her and I prayed over her, and of course I cried over her because that's only natural. And my husband got to hold her and just everything, and it was really nice. And my aunt came up there, and my brother, and we were going to keep her overnight in the room, but with me having the chills and the hormones, and her, since we knew she had no heartbeat, that Wednesday we knew that her body was kind of a little bit frail. And so we took her, we let them take her back, and then we got her back that Sunday, and we took some more pictures, and my husband prayed over her. And one thing that I had to say about this situation after going through it, you have to do whatever makes you comfortable to be able to walk out of that hospital and keep, your sanity. And some people won't understand that, and some people will. But I needed to love on her and touch her and kiss her head and be able to feel her to make me be able to be okay. And it was still hard when we got discharged that Sunday morning, and we had seen women when we were coming in, they were leaving and their babies were in the cart and they were going home. We just knew that was going to be us that Wednesday. And then to walk out and it just be us two is the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. But very quickly, because like I said, I didn't want this to be sad. The hospital was such a blessing. They did moldings of her that Saturday night when they had took her back. And these are the moldings of her hands, so that we'll always have those. And it was absolutely beautiful. And she was only 4 pounds, 11 ounces, and the doctor doesn't think she would have been more than 6. The funeral home picked her up that Sunday, and everything just worked out beautifully. We didn't have to pay for anything, which was a great blessing because we had no clue what we were going to do. But had a beautiful service that following Friday because they don't embalm babies, so we kept it a closed casket, but we were able to see her that Wednesday and say our goodbyes, and we ended up having her cremated. And again, this might bother some people, but I apologize if so. It's a very sensitive subject, but these are her ashes, and this urn is called a mother of pearl urn, which we felt was really fitting because her middle name, her second middle name is Pearl. And it's just, we can't be upset about the process because it was blessed. Physically, I was fine. I was fine when I left the hospital, and when I went back for my appointment, he gave me the okay. It's just a really hard thing to go through. And again, as I stated before, this whole journey has been about Shala as a tribute to her. And I'm going to keep my videos up, and I'm going to, you know, not be afraid of talking about her and about my experiences, because one thing I've learned through this situation before we even left the hospital is that our story touched so many other people, and there were so many people who contacted us and talked with us and said, hey, I've gone through this. And so even though it's a grieving situation for us, I still believe that God has all power and is going to bless us to get through, and we're going to be blessed with more children when that time is meant to happen. And I'm just thankful because it could have been worse. I always think about that. As bleak as my situation can be, someone's situation might be even worse. And I at least got to process it and be her mom. And I will always be her mom. And I think that's something that is very important to acknowledge when you have stillborn children, is that that doesn't make you any less of a parent. You're just as much as a parent today as you were when you found out you were pregnant, and when your husband, you saw the, you know, pregnancy test. And that's what I hold on to. And I just take it one day at a time. So some of you have been praying and just giving well blessings to us, and we really appreciate it. And we're just thankful that we've been blessed to get through the situation. And, you know, we just take it one day at a time. So I thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope and pray you're having a wonderful and blessed day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.